Welcome to Bed Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, T. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, bed crimers. As always, I wish you the best. To anyone new here, a warm welcome. Thank you for checking out my channel. Let me just ask that after listening to or watching this video, if you learned something or enjoyed it, please do me a favor and smash that like button. Now, let's dig in. 3 years after 49-year-old Suzanne Morphew disappeared while reportedly on a bike ride in Salida, Colorado on Mother's Day of 2020, her husband, 55-year-old Barry, and their 2 daughters, Mallory and Macy, are speaking out. Sadly, the 3 are pretty much blaming Suzanne for her own disappearance. You may recall that Barry claimed he was working out of town on that Mother's Day in 2020, and Mallory and Macy were also out of town on an out-of-state trip. If you're familiar with this case, you know that A, Suzanne's body has not been found. B, her bike was found down a ravine near a trail close to her home. C, that despite her body not being found, the prosecutors felt in May of 2021, a year after Suzanne vanished, that they had enough evidence to arrest Barry and charge him with first-degree murder, tampering with a human body, tampering with physical evidence, possession of a dangerous weapon, and attempting to influence a public servant. However, they were forced to drop those charges without prejudice, mere days after Barry's trial was about to start in April of 2022. That's when a judge ruled that prosecutors had made discovery violations. Note that the wording "without prejudice" means that the prosecutors can refile the same charges against Barry at a later date. D, Suzanne was indeed having an affair with a married man who had 6 children. This is a guy named Jeff Libler, and she went to high school with him, and he's admitted to the affair. But Barry was also allegedly found to have been signed up to online affair websites, according to prosecutors. E, Suzanne was allegedly very unhappy after she and Barry moved away from their hometown in Indiana to a gorgeous 3,256 square foot home set on 7.72 acres in Salida, Colorado, worth $1.3 million. Suzanne allegedly didn't want to move and was very much missing her family and her tight-knit group of friends whom she'd known since high school. F, beautiful Suzanne had been sunbathing in a bikini on the back patio of their home and had sent a photo of herself to Libler via LinkedIn, which she and he had been using to secretly communicate right before she vanished. Barry would later say that his wife looked drunk in that photo, which law enforcement said was Suzanne's last proof of life. G, per prosecutors, just days prior to her disappearance, Suzanne had texted her husband and apparently told him she intended to end their marriage. She wrote, "I'm done. I could care less what you're up to and have been for years. We just need to figure this out civilly." End quote. Note that the prosecutors also stated that Suzanne suspected Barry had been unfaithful to her, and she'd even purchased a spy pen to snoop on him. She put this spy pen in his truck to record any conversations he might have. And H, Barry Morphew did not participate in the large-scale searches for Suzanne that were organized by her devoted brother, David Mormon. Not only didn't Barry participate, he put up no trespassing signs on the property, and then, according to some of the searchers, allegedly drove around with a weapon when the searchers were near his property. On ABC News, Barry, with his daughters flanking him, explained how Suzanne had made bad decisions because she was struggling with drugs and chemotherapy while battling Hodgkin's lymphoma. Barry said, and I quote, "We had a wonderful life, a wonderful marriage. She was just so loving and giving and such a good mother. I know that she was going through chemotherapy for the last couple of years before her disappearance. I know she was going through some hard things and made some bad decisions. She was really having trouble with the chemotherapy and the drugs." End quote. Note that Suzanne had survived 2 battles with Hodgkin's lymphoma decades apart. Echoes of Alec Murdaugh in his first interview with police on the night his wife Maggie and his son Paul died, when he described his marriage as wonderful and his relationship with his son Paul also as wonderful. As you may know, Murdaugh was just found guilty in connection to the deaths of Maggie and Paul. Just saying. Barry went on to say that his heart was broken and he didn't believe it when he found out his wife was having an affair with a man she went to high school with. Oh, I think he believed it, and I think that's why Suzanne is missing. Again, just my opinion. He's no longer charged with any crime, so he's currently innocent. Barry also said on ABC News that the investigators got tunnel vision and had looked at one person, him. Barry also said that the investigators have too much pride to say they're wrong and look somewhere else. And he still insists he's done nothing wrong and thus has nothing to worry about. Okay, Barry. Now, Barry has filed a $15 million lawsuit against the prosecutors because he feels his name and reputation have been irreparably tarnished in Colorado and all around the country with a conspiracy to violate his constitutional rights. Barry's hotshot lawyers filed a 185-page complaint complaining the authorities 1. Conspired to wrongly arrest Barry, 2. That they fabricated evidence, 3. That they concealed exculpatory evidence. FYI, exculpatory evidence means evidence that could prove a defendant is innocent, and 4. That the authorities conducted a reckless investigation, all of which led to Barry Morphew being wrongly prosecuted. Note that Barry spent 5 months in jail and 6 more months wearing a GPS ankle monitor with restrictions on his movements. Those named in Barry's lawsuit include Chaffee County, that's the county in which he and Suzanne lived when she disappeared, the Sheriff's Office and Board of Commissioners, the 11th Judicial District Attorney Linda Stanley and her staff, and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation and FBI agents. The lawsuit claims that investigators and prosecutors withheld evidence of DNA from an alleged SO discovered in the glove box, not the SO in the glove box, the DNA evidence, in Suzanne's car. Rather an audacious move, this lawsuit, because I'm fairly certain investigators still believe Barry Morphew harmed Suzanne, and they're still trying to find her body so that they can charge him once again for her death. Filing this lawsuit is going to put an even bigger fire under the butts of the investigators and the prosecutors. For their part, Suzanne's heartbroken daughters, Macy and Mallory, are saying they are, and I quote, very, very sad, very confused, so traumatic, literally our worst nightmare, end quote. I do believe both daughters feel that way. Losing a mother is devastating at any age. I can attest to that. But I think losing a relatively young mother and in the way they lost their mom is all the more devastating. Of course they're confused and traumatized. My heart truly breaks for them. This is a horrible position to be in, caught between their missing mother and the only parent they have left, who is now blaming his wife and their mom for what he calls her bad decisions. It's really quite irritating to hear Barry Morphew further victim shame Suzanne. When asked if they ever questioned if their dad was involved, Mallory responded, "I've never had a shred of doubt," and Macy said, "Not one." Now, those are words that I personally do not buy. I think at least one of the daughters has wondered if her father could be involved. However, that is something that daughter probably feels she can't vocalize because she doesn't want to upset Barry and because her sister is steadfastly behind Barry, as Barry is behind himself, if you know what I mean. But I do remember that Suzanne had confided to friends that one of her daughters would always take Barry's side and believe everything he said, and that he could do no wrong by that daughter. Here is why the prosecutors arrested and charged Barry Morphew when Suzanne vanished. 1. A .22 caliber bullet round was found on the floor of Suzanne's bedroom next to her side of the bed. Barry owns a .22 caliber pistol that he says he uses to shoot chipmunks. Sounds a little like Chad Daybell shooting a raccoon. 2. There were cracks in the door of the master suite at the Morphew's home, appearing as if it had been battered down. Those cracks were not there when the house was sold to the Morphews. 3. An empty tranquilizer dart was found in the Morphews' dryer, along with a pair of khaki shorts, and Barry was caught on security footage in khaki shorts on May 9th, the day before Suzanne disappeared. In photos of Barry taken 3 days after Suzanne went missing, he had fingernail marks to his upper left arm and barely healed cuts on both arms. 5. On the morning of May 10th, data from Barry's truck shows the door was opened 7 times between 3:25 a.m. and 3:49 a.m. At 5 a.m., the truck left the Morphew home and was picked up on a camera in Poncha Springs at 5:14 a.m. Barry admitted in an interview that he first made a detour that took him close to the remote Garfield mine after allegedly spotting a herd of elk. Go to that mine and look in every mine shaft. 6. Barry admitted deleting texts on his phone between him and Suzanne on May 21st after the investigation began. That certainly looks shady. 7. Police say they found remnants of a piece of lacquered wood in the fireplace of the Morphews' home, despite there being plenty of firewood nearby. They also found the remains of burned documents and books. Barry was caught repeatedly stopping as he made his way to the job site in Broomfield to dispose of trash. And yet, when he got home to their house, his truck was still filled with clutter and trash. So what was he throwing out? 9. Barry's job in Broomfield was for May 11th. Instead, Barry went there on May 10th. The hotel room that Barry rented for 2 of his employees who were supposed to do the job on May 11th smelled of chlorine and had many wet towels lying about it when those 2 employees turned up for the job. And the list goes on and on. We know Barry Morphew is a skilled hunter. He's got the antlers to prove it. Lots and lots of antlers. Skilled hunters know how to hide their tracks. It's possible Suzanne will never be found, and the person who led to her disappearance may never be held accountable. Let's hope that in the end justice prevails and the person responsible, the hunter, is hunted down and punished for taking Suzanne from her family and her daughters. Until the next time on Bed Crime Stories.